Hello guys, now I'm going to share my experience in Oracle on-campus interview. Oracle came for our college for recruiting for the role Associate Software Engineer. It offered about 16.64 CTC. There were 5 rounds. First was an online MCQ test, followed by the coding test, and there were 2 technical interviews, and finally a HR round. In the first round, that is online MCQs test, around 360 students have taken the test, and there were 82 MCQs, and the allotted time was 107 minutes. It was conducted on Oracle Pro Aptitude platform. The questions were based on aptitude, logical reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and verbal. And from data structures, they mostly concentrated on the topics trees and linked list. The most of the questions were asked from the concepts of binary search tree, heap, AVL tree, and tree traversal techniques. The core subjects which were asked in the exam were DBMS, operating systems, and C and computer networks. The basic sorting and searching algorithms were given, and the questions were asked about the time complexities, that is the best time complexity or the worst time complexities, and also a few loops were given where we need to predict the best or worst time complexity. The second round was online coding test. It was conducted on the same Oracle Pro Aptitude platform, and they gave 2 coding questions, and the allotted time was 60 minutes. Only 3 coding languages were allowed, and not all the versions of the C++ or Java are allowed. Only the basic versions of the C++ and Java are allowed. Here the programming languages which were allowed are C, C++, and Java. And for these 2 questions, I could say one was a graph based question which was a medium level, and other was a searching a string in a grid. For this question, the concepts of DFS and backtracking are required, where I have solved about 1.5 questions, and all the people who have solved more than one question have qualified for the interview. And coming to this online coding test, around 60 students have taken part in this online coding test, and among the 60, 23 were able to solve at least one problem in the given 2 problems, and they are qualified for the interview. Around 23 students have been qualified for the interview. Coming to the interview, before this interview there was a PPT conducted by the company, and I say that it's compulsory to attend the PPT and listen carefully about the Oracle and its GBU units. Coming to the first round, it was technical interview. It was a face-to-face interview. For me it was about 50 minutes, and the interviewer asked me that tell me about yourself. So I could briefly explain myself, starting from my background and my education, and also coming to the positions of responsibilities and my projects and my internship. Then a detailed discussion went about my recent project. Nextly, the interviewer asked me the Python questions. In Python, he asked me about slicing and difference between a list and tuple. As company is much oriented with the database, the interviewer asked me about the primary key, unique key, integrity constraints, and schema. Nextly, he gave me a coding question where the 2 strings were given and to check whether the 2 strings are anagrams or not. So I gave him a 4 optimizations starting from the brute force. Then later he just asked me to check whether 2 strings will be anagram, and if they are to be anagram, the number of swaps which we must make in a strings. Nextly, when I was coding, the interviewer asked me about the importance of break statement and the importance of break statement in Java after using the return statement. Nextly, at the last of this interview, he just asked me about what do you know about Oracle. I could explain what I know about the Oracle and the things which I have listened from the PPT pre-placement talk. And also he have asked me about the different GBU units. And later he has stressed me this question that why not the higher studies. This higher studies discussion for me went about 5 minutes, where I gave a detailed reasoning and he was counter questioning me. So successfully I completed this technical interview 1. And coming to this technical interview 2, the first question was same, that is tell me about yourself. And then he gave me a coding question to find the frequency of each letter and word in a given sentence. I gave him 3 optimization techniques, and he gave me another question to find the duplicate elements in an array. For this question I gave him 6 optimizations, and nextly he asked me about the linked list applications, and though connected with this linked list, he went in depth with this discussion of linked list, doubly linked list, and circular linked list. And then I have done my internship on this WebRTC, web real-time communication. So the discussion went on this web real-time communication, and he gave me few edge cases where I can use this WebRTC. over the Zoom and Google Meet. And nextly, as I mentioned in my resume, as I am working as CR and PC, so he asked me about my positions of responsibilities. And then the next question was this linear and non-linear data structures. As I mentioned in the resume about the my SQL hacker ranking, so he asked me about it and also gave me few queries where I was able to solve the queries, and the basic DBMS questions were asked further. Successfully, even I could clear this technical interview too, and then I entered the last round, that is HR round. And the first question was about my recent project, and a detailed discussion about my recent project went, and he asked me about the in-depth questions about the constraints and I cannot use this project, few test cases or few examples where I cannot use this project or where this project is limited up to. And then next question was about my positions of responsibilities, and he asked me about the to detail about the procedure in which I took these responsibilities and how I am working, and about my pressure situations taking up these responsibilities. And then he asked me about the best and worst project reasoning and my about my major project idea. Then he gave me few case studies. One of the few case studies which he gave was to prepare a application that can be used for street vendors. He asked me to list out the constraints or the basic test cases which I'll be considering when creating an application for the street vendors. And nextly he asked me that if I could work for a company which offers me a project of about 25 years. Software development life cycle discussion went through, and he have asked me about the different levels of testing, alpha testing, beta testing. And lastly, he asked me about the questions about my hobbies and time management, and also I am selected for this role. And suggestions from my side are like for coding round, you must have an intense practice from your side, practice on the platforms Hacker Rank, CodeChef, and Codeforces, and be confident while you are answering the subject related questions like operating systems, computer networks, and DBMS. They may grill you a lot, but be confident. Finally, I could say that be cool and calm to give your best. Thank you, guys.